Hey guys, what's up? I haven't actually looked at the patch yet, so this is my first impressions, but just going to run through it with you and share my kind of initial thoughts. The new champion looks really fun, but really don't know much about it yet, so maybe we do a separate video on that at some point with one of the players, but for now I'm not going to talk too much about that. Alright, let's get into the changes then. Aatrox, Q damage ratio decreased, E recharge time increased. This is like one of 3 red side picks that really needs toning down. Aatrox, Cassio, and Lucian right now is like the very standard red side bans and kind of makes competitive, especially a little bit like stale. Some people experimented with letting like one through and trading it off, but you really need like a whole draft plan around how do you stop these champs really doing what they can just do so easily. Aatrox is flexible into like 3 roles in competitive play: top, jungle, and mid. And then, as far as I'm aware, pretty impressive in solo queue as well. So let's have a look at the champ. Base damage on Q is unchanged, but ratio is down by like 0.9, down to about 0.5 later stages. Full combo base damage is unchanged. Full combo ratio was down by like 0.33, and recharge time is up 2 seconds early rank, well, up 2 seconds at all ranks actually. I don't think this is enough to really change much about the champ. I mean, getting hit by Q is definitely like gonna hurt slightly less, but I really don't think that matters too much. Normally overkills you anyway, especially if it hits sweet spots on you. But yeah, this champ's kit, the Q ability just in itself, like 3 knockups in one ability, and doing that much damage if you're good at this champ or you hit the right spots against stuff without a dash and things, really hard to deal with. And you naturally itemize for a lot of CDR, stuff like Black Cleaver, the lethality items like Ghostblade, all give you so much CDR that I think the 2 seconds here will be like pretty negligible. Having your E up is really important because of how it interacts with your Q and allows you to hit Q, but I really think this isn't enough to stop Aatrox just being as impressive as he can be. Aurelion Sol, haven't seen this champ in a while. Q recast time reduced, stun duration shorter for recast quickly, longer for big stars. So a bit more like a Nivea now, where you can actually recast the Q much earlier. 0.5 seconds is a really long recast time, and it was like quite high range to actually recast. So 0.25 seconds can be buffered by double tapping Q. Depends on the speed of the Q. I'm not sure how far it travels away from your body in 0.25 seconds, but you technically should be able to stun melee champs much easier, unless they're like right on you, which helps with the self peel of this champ, because like without ult, this champ really struggles in getting away from targets that get on her. Stun duration is much lower, scaling to much higher if traveling seconds after traveling with 5 seconds. I think you don't hit many stuns with your Q that have been traveling for 5 seconds. Very rare, I think. Maybe in some like heavy team fights, group team fights, but it's not really a champ I see a lot, so I may be wrong on that, but for traveling for 5 seconds seems like a real long time. And then it only scales, but generally your stun duration is going to be significantly short. Well, actually, scaling to 1.5 seconds. It's hard. The scaling bit might be okay, but traveling for 5 seconds seems a really long time, so generally I think your stun duration is going to be shorter, but you're going to hit it more regularly, technically, especially on melee champs. Previous stun duration reach after 0.5 seconds when Q reach Aurelion Sol's outer limit if he lands still. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what to think of this champ. I mean, I don't think it like makes Aurelion Sol broken or anything like this, but probably makes it feel a little bit better to play, and removes some of her vulnerability. Brand passive damage over time decreased. This really isn't a champ that's particularly good and competitive, but is really fun in solo queue. If you like playing support and still doing the most damage on your team, this is the champ for you. I mean, just really high base damage, really doesn't need much AP to do a huge amount of damage and team fight damage. But the passive damage per stack is down 1% to 3% of target's max health over 4 seconds. I don't think this really changes Brand. He'll still do the most damage in solo queue support, but in competitive play or pro play, it's way too exploitable to pick something like this unless you're like guaranteed to kind of be on an island 2v2, which rarely happens. And even then, there's like loads of supports that have a lot of kill pressure on you. Cassio, W cooldown increased late game. Damage decreased late. Sorry, yeah, W cooldown increased late, damage decreased late. W miasma, down, same cooldown at the moment at rank 1, down to 2 seconds more in the later stages. Damage per second is up to 60, was up to 80, and max damage is about 100 less. I guess it's quite significant damage nerf, but really this champ, like, your W is really not for your damage. The W is to allow you to hit your Q normally, and equally poison targets for your E. So I really don't think this changes the strength of Cassio. But I mean, the biggest strength of W is the grounded effect, which we all know is really obnoxious, especially over such a kind of wide area. Which, like, in a team fight, you can hit like everyone with that, and guarantees Qs. And if you guarantee a Q, then the champ does the most DPS and a huge amount of DPS in the game. Wins pretty much, or gets prio in pretty much every bot lane matchup. And overall, just a bit of a silly champion in its current state. So again, a bit like the Aatrox changes, I really don't think this like stops Cassio being really powerful. But yeah, I mean, technically she's weaker. Galio, Q damage decreased, cost increased, E damage decreased early. So Galio, for someone who's so hard to kill, generally, with a fair bit of mobility for a champion like he is, the aftershock on some of these kind of CC mid lane mages like Galio, Lysandra, just really powerful. If you can proc it, you just have so much more time you buy yourself. But was never like the most damage dealing champion. I mean, he always had the ability to, if he lands E, you pretty much one shot most mid laners around like when you've actually Q, so around like levels 7 to 9. But lots of people were going pro about on Galio as initial item just because it synergizes so well with the kit. But maybe these mana changes hurt. 10 mana on Q level 1, but up to 30 mana later. I'm not sure exactly how much how that'll be in hurting the champ, but won't be great. Wind Blast damage is down by 10. Sorry, down by 5, up to down by 20 when it's maxed. AP ratio is down by 0.15. And tornado ratio only does 2% of the target's max health per 100 AP. Yeah, okay. So there's damage nerfs there for sure. This is a champion that's very reliant on Q. It's like the main damage ability normally, especially in like team fights. It's like all your AoE damage really. So if this champion's Q really isn't great, then wave clear goes down significantly. The ability to push on the champion is everything, because if you can't push in lane matchups, then you're in a situation where the worst place to be for Galio is pushed under his tower in lane. So mana costs and damage on that ability hurt a lot, but I'm not sure how much these numbers actually hurt. I'd have to do the math on that to see. E damage is down also. in the early levels by about 20, and I think Galio's max E last, so it'll stay down 20 for quite a long period of the game. So okay, Aurelia then. Passive bonus damage versus shields removed. Q deals bonus damage to minions instead of double damage. R duration increased late. Damage increased. Slow increased. No longer disarms. Passive Ionian Fervor. Shield breaker. Aurelia no longer deals bonus damage to shields at max dex. Q blade surge. Bonus damage versus minions. Flat bonus. Numbers much higher, but no ratio. And doesn't do double damage. Again, would take some looking at, but I think, especially in the early game, this should be much higher than it was. The Q damage. It was a total attack damage ratio actually, not a bonus. Again, it's something else to do the math on to see the difference, but definitely much worse in the later stages of the game. And your ability to push is much worse. R Vanguard's edge duration 2.5, 3, 3.5, 2.5 seconds at all ranks. The duration of the R. The duration of the R wasn't really the bit that mattered. It was hitting them and then doing what you do with being able to dash around these targets while they were slowed, and the damage you did initially with the front burst. The wall slow being 90%, I think is actually pretty huge. 90% is like really not that far off a stun, so much more allows you to hit your E, which in turn allows you to kind of operate inside these skirmishes or these fights much better. And the wall damage is up quite significantly as well, 50 in the early ranks and up to 100 when it's maxed. I actually think R, even without the disarm and a shorter duration, probably is a better ability overall. With higher damage, higher wall slow. Yeah, probably better, and better Q damage in the early game, I think. Maybe only a little bit though. But overall, I think Q is a worse ability. R is probably overall better ability in most circumstances with the 90% wall slow and more damage. Jarvan, E attack speed increased. He gets more attack speed from his E. Now 5% more at all ranks. It's okay. Doesn't really solve any Jarvan issues. This champ is okay. The champ's okay. Not great, but okay. And I don't think this changes what he's good or bad at. But could see some play. Jax, attack damage decreased, Q damage decreased early. Down by 1.97 damage on space AD. Leap strike damage is down 15 at all ranks, with the same ratios. Just tones Jax down slightly. Doesn't do too much issues for him. He'll still win the same matchups, I think, and still is really strong on the side. Causes the same issues for the champs he always causes issues for. Kassadin's armor decreased, playing into Kassadin's anti-magic theme, but no weakness in physical lane damage bullies. Base stats, he's lost 4 and 4.4 armor nearly, and armor growth is down by 0.4. Yeah, I mean, if someone now blind picks Kassadin, playing a physical damage lane into Kassadin is going to be more beneficial than it was before, but I mean, shock, that was always the case, and doesn't really change much here, so yeah. I can't even remember ever the last time that Kassadin was blind picked, so really doesn't change much on that. You only really use Kassadin to counter pick certain mages that that it can punish and then win on side versus. Kane. We've seen some Kane lately, and some people have been speaking about Kane and some of its strengths, with some of the tank junglers being picked more commonly, like Sejuani in the jungle. Kane's a really good champ versus these types of melee tanks that just farms against in the early game and then gets transformation. Once the champion actually gets like red form, is actually really good. Really good skirmish, really good team fight, fast clear. But it's the period between that. So the smoother kind of transformation we'll have a little look at. Darkin and Shadow Assassin share unlock progress. When transformation becomes available, the form that unlocks is chosen based on which champion type Kane dealt more damage to. Transformation threshold is now 500 points from any champion type, whereas before it was 400 points per champion type. Okay. If Kane unlocks his transformation when the two forms are near even, Kane unlocks the form of the champion type he damaged last. Damage dealt later in that game is still worth more transformation progress, but doesn't count for more in terms of which form Kane unlocks. Once Kane's first form is unlocked, he can continue collecting orbs of the other form's type to reduce the timer until the second form unlocks. Okay. Transformation clarity. Kane's transformation bar now changes colour based which champion Kane has dealt most damage to. Kane can now ping various aspects of his passive to his team. Right, okay, so basically it just makes it a bit smoother. If you get the transformation you didn't want, you can now continue getting the orbs from the type you do want and reduce the timer. It's not a set timer anymore. It was like 3 minutes before, which was quite a long time to like sit around. You've not really been a champion for up until that point, so having an extra 3 minutes on top of that was always pretty rough. So be interesting to see how much the reduced timer is. But again, maybe it just makes it a bit smoother to kind of change into the form you want. What other changes is there? Kane can now recall before Shadow Step expires as long as he's still in terrain. Okay. Bit of a quality of life buff, I guess. Doesn't really mean much. And Shadow Assassin's exit dash is now can go up to 500 range based on the Shadow Assassin Kane's cursor position. Okay, so when you're this squishy assassin type, you've got a slightly further exit dash range. And then just a few bug fixes. Doesn't really change Kane too much. Be interested to see how this passive works now. Whether it's easier to get that the red form. Basically, like I said before, Kane's weakness is like the pre-form change, and for competitive, in most instances, the red form's like best. So if you can get that and you can get it early, then it's really good. If you can't get it, it takes you a long time. Then your champion really doesn't do too much. So. It's all about how smooth that goes. Nico, W clone, haste duration increase, clone travels in target direction rather than pathing to target location. R no longer slows, but Nico lands faster after jumping. W shape splitter. Clone and haste duration is 3 seconds, stealth duration still 0.5 seconds. Nico's clone now travels in target direction till it runs into terrain, rather than pathing to the target location. Shapeshifter's passive once again works on turrets. Okay, that's just a bug fix. Great. Don't think it changes too much. I don't think too many people are fooled by the W. It's more about just getting away from certain little situations with the stealth for 0.5 seconds and the speed boost. Pop Blossom. Its jump time is now 0.6 seconds. Tooltip now indicates the ability power ratio on Pop Blossom's shield. Actual scaling unchanged. Okay, so you spend a little less time in the air. There's a 0.15 seconds less time in the air, but equally there's no 40% slow for you to get out of. Don't know which works best actually. Probably in most cases, just being able to activate your ult quicker or jump in the air and land your ult quicker is better than the slow. Probably just a slightly worse peeling tool. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Doesn't change the eco too much, I think. On health and armor increased. This champion got some really interesting buffs on 9.1. And I think the passive, once you get to level 13 as this champ, is just broken now. Being able to give so much gold stats to yourself and your teammates, it's just really, really valuable. The issue he has is not past that point, because I think it's so valuable to any comp kind of past that point, but it's more, how does he get through laning phase without the shield in his W? He loses so many more trades nowadays than like in current patch than he did before. He could just soak up, he could just trade with W brittle proc, but now he doesn't get the shield. He actually just trades his health quite easily, and it's really hard to lane as this champion in a lot of matchups. So any tankiness is good. So it's 35 base health and 3 more armor. I mean, it helps. It definitely helps bring on to a better place. I still think he'll have hard time in lots of matchups. And yeah, that's kind of where he's at. If he can get through early game without being punished, this champ's super strong. The ult and the passive are just really, really powerful tools to have in any comp. Rakan, armoring decreased, W dash speed decreased, but activates faster upon reaching the destination. Base armor is now down 4. This champ was very squishy anyway. It had fairly high 29 base armor is really low actually. It had fairly high base health, but it had pretty low resistance stats anyway. So I mean, this champ was squishy, and you don't really build you don't build much tankiness on this champ anyway. So I don't think this champ was too tanky for what it does. It just gives you a guaranteed really, really powerful engage tool, and that's it really, but consistently, which is very, very valuable to comps. Its laning phase wasn't great. It's okay. It's very mobile, so it gets out of lots of things, but doesn't add a huge amount in the lane. But then in team fights, just gives you such a good guaranteed engage tool. Dash speed is down. Yeah, whatever way you look at it, down. The effect delay after reaching the destination is 0.15 seconds. Okay, so if you accurately land it without people walking out of it, then you're more likely to hit it. But I think it's more about people dodging it, and at higher elos, the W in isolation without the ult. Some certain champions struggled, but for the most part, people could dodge anyway. So it being that much slower, it's quite a bit slower. Like 500 is really not great. And then fixed a bug on ult, whatever. Shyvana, passive bonus damage to dragons increased, E mark damage increased. I haven't seen this champ at all really. Just 20% bonus damage to dragons. I mean, whatever. And the mark damage is higher on E. That's good, but this champ is it's okay, but it's got a few issues. It's quite a one-dimensional champ. Time catch. Allies in combat with champions can no longer. I think this is just a Kasing nerf. Kasing does a huge amount of this, like with his Kench. There was a big Splice highlight play from him last split, where he ate Kobe in kind of the last second to save him in a fight. But that's a shame that allies in combat can't be eaten, or can't be jumped into Abyssal Voyage anymore, because it was a really fun kind of interaction. Urgot army decreased, Q cost increased, W cooldown increased early, armor down by 3, Q mana cost up by 10, cooldown up in the early ranks. Champ's very oppressive. Champ wins lots of 1v1s at the side, likes to fight a lot, provides a really strong front line, does a huge amount of damage for a champion that really only builds one damage item in Black Cleaver. Just a really powerful champ right now. Has pretty good matchups into all the blind pickable top laners, is a blind pickable top laner itself, and also can be played mid in lots of instances. So I don't think these changes will take Urgot out of the meta or anything like that, but certainly make the champion slightly less powerful. Volibear, E-bonus damage versus dashing, airborne targets, change to max health. This champ is really like very one-dimensional, very kiteable. Doesn't really matter if it does a little bit more damage or anything like this. Like, really doesn't make much difference. It's not the damage the champ does that's bad. It's that the champ can literally run at you. Doesn't have a dash. Very kiteable, very dodgeable kind of abilities. And if he I mean, yes, in isolation, if he's just able to run you down and use his abilities on you, then great. But there's not many scenarios where that actually works or does anything. Normally gets CC'd or kited out of his movement speed, and then after that, like, the champ just stands there while you kill it. Yorick, another champion that I've never seen. I hardly see this champ. Again, pretty kind of one-dimensional in what it does. The ult doesn't offer too much. It just kind of runs down a lane and pushes the lane for you. The Maiden now follows Yorick when he leaves the lane. Maiden health scales better with game time. Grey spawn faster late. I mean, it's okay. Versus like blind tanks, it does a lot and can push and start to knock down your structure with the little ghouls. But again, it's like, why would you ever pick this champ over others? And there's not many instances where you would. If you want to beat up a tank on a side lane, there's so many better champs to do it than Yorick, and Yorick's team fighting isn't the best. Yeah, it doesn't really add much. I guess. And the ult just feels very like, I don't know, just feels very like, just gives you a bit of a push or does a little bit of damage, but it's not like huge damage or anything like this, or a big team fight impacting ult. So yeah, it really doesn't do a huge amount. Zyra, mana regen decreased. Okay, she has less mana regen. I don't see much Zyra right now. Again, in some matchups, it can be a good support. It's got some good counter pick potential. We see a bit more Ashe coming back into the meta, so maybe Ashe RA used to be a big thing to get like lane pressure in pretty much any lane, but I don't really see much of it. Bit like the Brand kind of syndrome, right, where it's does a lot of damage, has a lot of lane pressure, very punishable if you can get onto it. But yeah, that's kind of where Zyra at. She can be good, but it's very select scenarios. And her ult and E, with the E duration, being much better when you max it now. So like for support, it's got some good abilities, but yeah, I don't see much of this champ. Evelyn's got some quality of life changes and bug fixes. I'm not really going to talk about bug fixes, but hate spike still prioritized the last champion. Now prioritizes the lowest health champion. Okay, so if you cast W on them, it just casts on them. When they lose sight, they don't go. You can now buffer R in the empowered E, which is quite nice. The little combos to make them more smooth. Evelyn's okay. She has some good moments where, if you're playing for sides and you want a champion that can play off of that, then yeah, Evelyn has a good job. But again, it's like I still just think stuff like Kha'Zix is just much more viable for competitive play. Doesn't have quite as weak 1 to 6. This champ's very immobile without ultimate, and can be punished quite a lot. So, but overall, just it's fine. Claire, that's a change that went live last patch. Minimap targeting. They're changing that. Oblivion Orb cost increase, ability power decrease, so just a much less gold efficient item. This item was just really good for 1500 gold. Gave you the flat pen and a little bit of AP, but really you didn't get that much out of upgrading it to Morello's unless you really needed the Grievous Wounds. It was just better to, in most cases, to go up just the Oblivion Orb and then start on your next item. But yeah, just more gold means it's just a less gold efficient item with less AP for more gold, basically. And same with Morello's, less AP for more gold. So, well, less AP for the same amount of gold now on the full upgrade. So a little bit more value now in upgrading it to what there was, but still not great. Sunfire Cape cost decreased. People weren't buying this so much, so it's 150 gold cheaper. So yeah, now more gold efficient than it was. Great. Overheal, ally healing grants less shielding. Self healing grants more shielding late. Shield decays gradually instead of immediately. Ally heal conversion. So you heal more of yourself, less off allies. Shield decay after 6 seconds decays by 2.5% of the max shield value. Overheals tooltips. Yeah, so you just gradually lose the shield now rather than immediately, basically. And self heal conversion is just higher. Ally heal conversion is just less. Lifesteal per stack decreased, max stack doubled on Legend Bloodline. Lifesteal per stack is 0.2% down, but max stacks is 20, so the max lifesteal was up by a total of 4%. Yeah, people normally just go for Alacrity over Bloodline. Does this change things? May give you a slightly less one-sided decision, but probably still people are up for Alacrity, especially in the early game. Like lifesteal really isn't great because you don't do that much damage, whereas attack speed just is a good stat throughout. But could be okay, I guess, if it's like you're getting poked down a lot or whatever, just to see you through versus some kind of poker champs. Cut down bonus damage skills based on percent max health difference rather than flat max health difference. Minimum bonus decreased. Cut down scales dramatically over game time due flat health. Differences being much narrower before level scaling items kick in. Switching to percent model makes it useful in the early game, though the max bonus is going down to accommodate this increase in relevance. Bonus damage 4 to 12%. 4 to 10% versus targets with 10 to 100% more max health than you. Maximum bonus decrease myself. Scales based on percent max health difference. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Absolute focus, adaptive stats decreased. Absolute focus is overtuned, particularly for champions who extract tons of PvE value from bonus stats, marksmen, junglers. We're bringing its effectiveness down across the board. Adaptive stats 3 to 24 or 5 to 40 AP. It's now 1.8 to 18. Okay, so it's just overall a worse rune, gives you more options in the sorcery tree. Yeah, I don't like rune pages just being like standard and there's no real room for variance. So anything that kind of brings down to where the choices are more even, I think is good. Rather than just set rune pages, this is just always the best scenario for a rune. Adaptive damage stats damage down to 9 from 10 really doesn't make much difference. Armor up to 6 from 5, MR up to 8 from 6. Yeah, again, such minor stat changes really doesn't mean too much. Some of the spells, ignite, damage and cooldown decreased. So the damage is less, but the cooldown is 30 seconds less. Probably yeah, I'm not sure. I guess it provides more times in a game where you want to look for those all-ins or look for the fights, but Ignite has less impact on those specific fights, but still impact nonetheless. I don't think it will reduce the amount of time reduce the amount of ignites we see. Just so good for trades, especially early in the game. Game pacing, Hand of Baron. Baron buff is weaker in the early game. Scaling accelerates over time and increments every second. Attack damage is half when you at 20 minutes and the same later. And scales over time. AP is half. Minion damage reduction versus champions was 70% at all times, now 50%. So right now the way the meta looks is like teams fight or skirmish a lot, and skirmish and fight around 22 to 25 minute mark. The team that wins that fight and gets the Nash often wins the game. Like I don't know the exact stats, but first Nash in a meta like this where there's a cannon every wave after the 25 minute mark, and minions moving fast, alongside really strong Baron buff, just accelerates games. And I think LEC I heard was like actually the fastest region right now. But yeah, but Baron's just too strong. So this nerf technically gives them more of a chance to being, if a team gets Baron, the game's just not doomed. Which I think is good. I think there should be a chance to not be like the game's over before it's over. So giving chance to actually play for that and fight that is good. And being able to wave clear against it to an extent is slightly more healthy, I guess. Inhibitor and Nexus turrets have late game resistances at all times. On a similar note to Hand of Baron above, we're making base defenses more resilient to early sieges and avoid games falling into unrecoverable state. Inhib and Nexus turret resistances have 70 armor at all times. Okay, so again, just slowing the games down a little bit, making it a little bit harder to take. Your towers take less damage. You can wave clear a little bit easier against Baron minions. It's just more of a task to actually break down the base now and just win off one Baron. So yeah, all round good, I guess. Equally, you don't want the game to go the other way, where it's like impossible to close out. But I don't think these changes really do that. So that's good. Jungle camp experience scaling decreased. Rift Scuttler Gold scaling also decreased. So just an overall change to junglers. Experience scales every second level instead of every level. Scaling reduced from 50% to 25%. XP scaling levels 1, 3, 5 and 7. Gromp XP is down. Scaling wise, everything basically scaling wise is down. Buff camps experience scales every second level instead of every level. Scaling reduced from 57% to 25%. Golden experience scaling reduced from 100% to 2%. I'm not sure this was really necessary. This does seem like you're going to slow junglers down a lot. Not really sure what it means for the meta. Maybe champs that just are more proactive on the map in the early levels are better, because you actually don't need... It's going to take you longer to get to a scaling point from the jungle now. a much longer time, I guess, to get to that point. So maybe champs that are like better 1 to 5 are actually just better, but we'll have to see how that goes. Gold reduced as well on Scuttler and experience. Then the red smite, which was kind of the obvious choice in like I'd say 85 to 90% of cases, people would just go red smite over blue just because it adds much more, gives you vision, allows them to do much less damage to you, still does damage to them, was just better. And now it doesn't give you vision, and the damage to champs over 2.5 seconds is just less at all levels. So I guess there's more of a choice. I think it's good that there's more of a choice. There should be more of a choice rather than one just being much stronger, but I guess that wraps it up. Thanks guys for joining me. I know it was a bit of an unprepared one where I just kind of touch on my thoughts of the patch, but I appreciate you coming to watch. So thank you guys, and speak to you soon. Bye bye.